Very warm welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And I would like to welcome Rebecca and Wendy as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Wendy, for taking out your time and coming up for this webinar, sharing all those insights that are packed up in your deck. And can't wait to share all of those things with our audiences. But let me quickly start with, first of all, introducing myself, Goodera, and then our speakers to all our attendees. So first of all, I am Pratham Kashyap. I look after the marketing part of the global non-profit partnerships at Goodera. And with me, I have my team members, Digdarshika and Nandini as well, who will be looking at the entire management of this webinar from the back end. And with us, we have two amazing speakers from this organization called DoinGud, which is a platform that facilitates fundraising and donations through NFTs and cryptocurrencies, which is really interesting. And today, both Wendy and Rebecca, we have them, they have prepared a very, very insightful deck. I have myself gone through that, and I think it's a great informative deck to share with all of you. And I think it is going to be a great learning session with both of you. Rebecca is the Nonprofit Relations and Partnerships Director at DoinGud, and Wendy is Steward Nonprofit Relations and Community Team at DoinGud. I think they will throw some light on their profile and on the session more. But first of all, let me quickly run everyone through our deck, and I'll tell you what Goodera is all about, because a lot of the attendees might be interacting with us for the first time. So I quickly want to introduce Goodera to all of you, and actually what is the company all about and what do we do. Okay, so currently, as you all know, we have gathered to attend this webinar called Crypto Philanthropy 2.0 Nonprofit Fundraising with NFTs. And I'll tell quickly something about Goodera. So at Goodera, we call ourselves the Airbnb of volunteering. Why? Because here we want to create some meaningful connections between the nonprofit organizations and corporate volunteers from all across the globe. So I think these numbers in itself tell a lot of story, because our nonprofit partners are present from more than 100 countries now, and we have impacted more than 10 million beneficiaries so far. And we have 1 million plus employees, corporate employees volunteering through our platform. And we are co-headquartered in San Francisco, California, and Bangalore in India. And we have been funded with several marquee investors. So that's a very brief about Goodera. Now, coming on to our nonprofit partners, this is a very small list of our huge amongst our huge nonprofit partners, and few of them we just wanted to collate so that a lot of you can actually recognize few of these logos and understand our reach and impact. These are very few of our nonprofit partners. So we have our nonprofit partners from across multiple cause areas and across multiple countries as well. So starting from LGBTQ support communities to helping people with disabilities and other causes as well. We have lots of nonprofit organizations partnered with us. Now, our partners have been creating such a huge impact amongst their geographies and in their communities, but how do we contribute to their efforts? So first of all and foremost, we cater their volunteering needs, and we help them provide some meaningful corporate volunteers to engage with. And like all of you can see that here are some beautiful illustrations created by some of the corporate volunteers for our nonprofit partners, which were further used by the nonprofit organizations on their social media, website, and other public handles. So these are for creating awareness and for other multiple purposes. So this is just a brief of what a non-profit volunteering activity can look like. Apart from this, I think this is a very big part of our initiative, that we share the voice. We become a platform for all our nonprofit partners to share their voice, to share their impact that they're creating amongst their beneficiaries on our platform, and reach out to more and more corporate volunteers and become an inspiration for lots of nonprofit organizations from all across the globe. So you can learn, you can share your work, you can actually create an awareness through our platform. And we have been writing and collaborating with multiple third-party platforms like Thrive Global, Forbes, and there are several others, including our website and our social handles as well. Moving further, this is a very important and a very peculiar thing that we do is corporate matching gift programs. Now, what do we do here is lots and lots of our corporate clients have corporate matching gift programs wherein they contribute some amount of donation for every volunteer or volunteer. So it can be as minimum as $5 per volunteer hour to $25 or $30 as well per volunteer hour. So our nonprofit partners can always explore this with collaborating with our corporate clients. And last but never the least, we have this exclusive community for nonprofit organizations. I think either you can scan this QR code, or my colleague will quickly put a link for this Karma community on Facebook in the comment section. Please feel free to click on that, and please feel free to join that group. This is an exclusive nonprofit group where we have more than 700 nonprofit organizations and philanthropic leaders a part of this group, as a part of this group. And additionally, like webinars like these, we are consistently organizing such knowledge sessions and create such knowledgeable resources and share it across with our nonprofit partners. So I think this is a brief about what Goodera is all about. And now I'll quickly stop sharing my screen, and I can't wait for Rebecca and Wendy to start the session and share their insights about the NFTs in the philanthropy space.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pratham. What an introduction. So hello, we are so delighted to be here to talk to you today about what we believe is an amazing new space opening up in the fundraising space, and that is crypto philanthropy. Today's webinar will be about sort of the way that NFTs fit into that. A huge thank you to the team at Goodera for inviting myself and Wendy to speak today. We're so excited. Myself and Wendy are from the nonprofit relations team at DoinGud. It's basically launched around November time, and we've essentially just been growing our community and our platform ever since. It's an NFT creator first platform that ensures that each and every transaction results in a donation to a nonprofit of the creator's choice, and it's entirely free for nonprofits to join. So Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
So Rebecca and I have been working sort of as partners in crime for the past year while we're building behind the scenes. And as Rebecca said, we launched on December 1st. Prior to participating in the project that is DoinGud, I had a couple careers working for large corporations, helping them with organizational transformation and leadership development. And alongside those careers, like many of you would recognize, I also participated and did part-time leading of nonprofits, certainly contributed to the operations and some of the professional managerial stuff to do with nonprofits in the US. I'm now in London, UK. By coincidence, Rebecca is in Manchester, also in the UK. So that's how my sort of backstory leads up to building what Rebecca and I do, which is building relationships with nonprofits so they can participate in the DoinGud ecosystem.
Amazing, thank you. And really quickly, before I get on to today's agenda, just to give you a brief overview of kind of where I've come to it with the whole DoinGud sort of situation. I joined DoinGud basically at its inception. But prior to this, basically, I've been in and out of different areas of the nonprofit sector, in areas such as mental health, youth employment and engagement, basically development and international development. And outside of DoinGud, I largely work with an organization that's based out of Atlanta called Peace Building Solutions, that works largely with refugees in different areas of the world. So yeah, jumping ahead to today's agenda. So here's what we're going to talk about today together. We hope to give you basically a perspective on this rapidly emerging space. We'll be doing essentially a brief recap. We'll start with a brief recap on Goodera's previous session on crypto philanthropy. We'll then give some examples of our topic, actual NFT sales that have already taken place. We'll then take a step back. We'll be going through some kind of the little bit of the terms that may or may not have come up in the previous session. We're just going to basically do a little refresher there. And then now that we've made sense of kind of the terms, we then need to ask essentially how mainstream is this space? Essentially, is it filled with a load of oddballs, or is there like a lot of people doing amazing things with essentially a rapidly emerging technology? We're then going to jump to commonly cited risks that are often covered in the media, and also give some responses to these risks. And then we'll go through how to get started in nearly no time at all. We'll be finishing then with some key takeaways, which will essentially be a great launching pad for our discussion. Time for a bit of Q&A, where we'll basically take the time to answer any and all questions that you may have. So, without further ado, so these are this is some of the, at least this is a brief recap of some of the takeaways from the previous session done by Tina Rowe from every.org, and her session was essentially focused around cryptocurrency more generally. So these are some of the key facts. So 21 million or 14% of adults in the US own crypto, and they are charitable. This is a huge thing that myself and Wendy have seen and been taken away with, is kind of the philanthropic nature of the space. So essentially nearly half donated 1,000 or more to a charity in 2020, and a third versus a third of all investors. The key thing that we took away from the presentation last time, and a key thing that we found, is that your nonprofit does not have to be technical or have a big development department to benefit from crypto. It can be done nearly next to no time. It's an embarrassingly easy process. And finally, the huge thing that we want to drive is basically do your own research. Talk to your financial advisor beforehand. This is super important with anything, and it's a key element of the crypto space in general, is being sort of self-owned, self-governed, self-sustained. So we're going to jump into some of our key descriptions, key terms. Wendy, would you like to jump in with this, or go for it?
So what the blockchain is the basic record keeping system. And it's a record keeping system that isn't owned, for instance, by, I don't know, HSBC or IBM or Chase or any centralized organization. It's owned by and operated by the people who choose to own and operate it. And it's because it's not centrally owned, it's not centrally controlled. It's we basically say, I sent $10 to Rebecca, and if the participants, hundreds or thousands of computer operators, validate that, then it becomes accurate. And there isn't anybody who can say, well, you didn't really send that money to Rebecca. And I can say, well, look, on the blockchain, I declared I did. And then all the participating computer runners, computer operators, confirmed that I did. That's how you know that I did. And so it's a system that isn't particularly owned and controlled by anyone. And because the blockchain is in place, there's all sorts of applications that can be run on this decentralized digital ledger. And I think we're going to look at some of those applications.
So similarly, cryptocurrency, this is something that Tina jumped into last time. Essentially, it's just a way of, it's the sort of the finance behind the blockchain. So it's a digital currency that uses cryptography, as it says here, and the blockchain to encrypt, secure, and verify transactions. So in a similar manner that Wendy was describing in the decentralized nature, what this decentralized ledger kind of then sort of necessitates is a decentralized currency, or what's sometimes referred to in the space as like decentralized finance. And finally, the key point for today: what is an NFT? So NFT essentially is an acronym, and it's what's referred to as a non-fungible token, which is essentially a certificate of authenticity assigned to a bundle of two things. So the first of those things is an asset. So this asset can be digital or physical. It could be a bit of digital art. It could be a physical concert ticket, something like a physical experience. And then the second thing contained within that NFT is the smart contract that governs it. So essentially NFTs are essentially ownership of collectibles that you can buy, sell, and trade. And the smart contract enables lifelong royalty. So in the manner that Wendy was describing, the immutability of the blockchain, that's sort of fed through the smart contract as well. And once those terms are written in, essentially any sort of pricing structures that come into that are lifelong, and they can't be changed in any way. So briefly before we move on, quick recap. So the blockchain essentially is a record-keeping system. Cryptocurrencies are the money that's used in this new record-keeping system, and NFTs are the things that you can buy and sell with your cryptocurrency, and then the blockchain will keep track of all of it.
The first time Rebecca and I did this presentation was a few months ago, and at the time, I'd say there was a lot less recognition of what NFTs were. Hey, Jared, we see your question. What gives crypto value is such a beautiful question, because there's a literal answer, I suppose, and there's a sort of ethos answer for the blockchain and Web3 ecosystem. Crypto has value because the holders of the cryptocurrency believe it has value, choose to believe it has value. And as you know, Bitcoin goes up and down quite a bit, for instance. And so that's a reflection of the belief, like the stock market goes up and down. It's a reflection of the belief that day. And if you're choosing to spend an ETH coin or a Doge or a Bitcoin on one day when it's worth a lot, then you get to buy a lot. And if in 2 days, which is about the time, as you know, that things can change, you can buy less. So in some respects, it has value because the people who hold it, buy it, sell it, choose to believe it has value. So I'm gonna go ahead here. Please keep the questions coming, because we will either get some help or Rebecca and I will go back and forth. And of course, we're going to have our discussion at the end when you can also pose questions. But we appreciate the questions and very happy for you to put them in the chat. So there have been real life examples, as you may know, of NFTs, and they have earned, because of speculative behavior, some of the stuff that Jared was asking about, they have earned enormous sums. And these are some of the names that are pretty big in the space. There are new artists that are getting big in the space all the time. But these NFTs, or tokenized art, tokenized assets, have earned a lot of money for some people. And it's not just individuals, but it's also companies and sort of well-known brands that are also making their way into NFTs. And the thing is, like, why does this stuff matter? Why do NFTs matter? It's basically another, I'm going to use vague language to start, another way for both brands and individuals to communicate with their audiences. So let's just take Nike, for instance. Nike communicates through its clothes, through its designs, through its footwear, through its stores, through its sponsorships, and through product placement in movies, and little tokenized assets. Maybe it's a new pair of kicks, maybe it's a picture only of kicks, maybe it's a promise for a customized pair of kicks for you, the owner of the NFT. These NFTs provide yet another facet, another vehicle for communicating from the brand to their audiences. And for artists in particular, if we look at a sort of less commercial version of the question, why does this matter? For artists, it allows them to really, for the first time, to start to accumulate enough money to live on and possibly some generational wealth, because they're no longer required to go through a gallery in a local town or be featured in a museum, which of course there's so few museums that very small number of artists can actually be featured and gain notoriety. But with NFTs on these marketplaces, of which DoinGud is one, OpenSea is another, Rarible is another, Hikinunk is another, in these marketplaces, artists and creators of all types can find their audiences without having to go through these sort of centralized and centrally controlled structures. Has there been any success using NFTs to raise funds? And the answer to that question is absolutely. And when Rebecca and I started talking about this in August and September in conferences last year, 2021, there were a couple of examples. And now there are tons of examples. It could be just, for instance, Julian Assange selling an NFT to support either freedom of information providers or to an organization, his own organization that promotes freedom of information and other sorts of activities. It can be something like Justin's sale of a lot of money, for a lot of money, his art to support Los Angeles homeless people. And one of the things is, let's say Justin sells that, he gets the money, and then somehow his accountant or he has to, cut the check or send money to separately, offline, in real life, to the Los Angeles homeless shelters. In fact, in the article in the Los Angeles Times, they actually didn't name the homeless shelter. And I don't suppose it's because there's anything nefarious going on, but because it was another level of detail. Maybe Justin was choosing amongst 5 and hadn't chosen the 1 or 2 he wanted to benefit, but it's sort of non-specific. And so there's a little bit of trust that needs to be extended when we connect NFTs to charitable giving. There's a little bit of trust of, I basically have to trust, and I do, Wendy does, Justin to cut that check to the homeless shelters. I trust that the carbon drop got the money to the Open Earth Foundation. I didn't see it happen. I didn't see them write the check, but we're mostly good people, so it probably happened. And we also know that of the something along the lines, I'm gonna round up the numbers by a little bit, but it doesn't have a lot of material impact. Something along the lines of, let's say, $75 million has been sent to charities in Ukraine or supporting efforts, humanitarian efforts, not humanitarian, all efforts for Ukraine. And that may be in Ukraine or in Poland, in Moldova, in Hungary. It could be, in the neighboring countries. And of that 75 million US dollars, about 38 million is in crypto. And I think Rebecca made the point earlier on that the crypto community is, number one, young. So they're a whole new segment of donors, if you will. And they are very philanthropic. They believe in, it's almost like they believe in sharing. My generation, we call it giving back or donating. But really there's this notion that everybody should have something. So it's very a normal part of the crypto and blockchain Web3 ethos, to toss a little vocabulary at you, to give back and to give and to share resources. So I think that's why we see 50% of the funds that are out there to support Ukraine and in its needs, 50% are in crypto. So let's hit up the myth and realities. And this may stem some of the questions you have, or it may help you fine tune questions that you want to ask us. Rebecca and I get a lot of these questions in our day-to-day work in basically bringing nonprofits into the DoinGud registry. So we're all day and all night in conversation with nonprofits, understanding what the needs are, what the concerns are, whether that's the individual we're talking to, director of development, executive director, or the questions that those folks know that they're going to get from their board members. And these are some of those questions. We want to share them with you and kind of demystify if it's helpful and give you our perspective on what the realities are. So the first one is, that NFTs are a passing fad, that the I think there was an article I recently saw in December saying the death of NFTs. And from our perspective, it's probably a little premature to call for the end of NFTs. Why? First of all, big organizations like, really important museums that are helping to integrate art and creativity into society, for society of all ages, have been slowly buying into the notion of NFTs and including them in the population of things that are considered legitimate creativity. The other reason is that what we may be seeing is the passing of one of the very crazy peaks of speculation. So when that Beeple piece sold in 2021, in early 2021, when most of us were stuck in our homes, and that sold for just under 70 million US dollars. Art is, of course, worth what anyone will pay for it, and whoever owns that owns the biggest, most expensive piece of digital art and NFT in the world. And that's part of the speculation, part of the hype, as it's called. But we actually think there are real uses for NFTs, not just for creativity, but for validating or certifying any number of things. So that may include medical records that you want to be able to access for yourself anywhere in the world. You may have heard about NFTs holding the deeds for real estate. So there's lots of uses out in the marketplace, and it may be some of the feverish pitch of the speculation may be behind us.
Yeah. Again, these are just kind of listing some of the use cases. And again, what Wendy was saying about the key benefits, one of those being, I think just to highlight that, is the lifetime royalties, which I think is an amazing thing that I found mind-boggling coming to this space, is that in being attached to an NFT in that way, you not only get the proceeds from the first sale, but also the secondary, tertiary sales as well, and all done through the magic of the blockchain. No need to kind of, as Wendy was explaining before, no need to kind of chase that up or find, take a piece of each of those resales. It's all done transparently and immutably. So moving on to one of the big things that kind of comes up in the space when we talk about the risks, I think something that people are very, very mindful of is the energy consumption. And this is something, again, that's mentioned a lot in the media. So energy consumption of what? Well, I suppose it's as we kind of outlined here, essentially it's the computational energy that's required to power the distributed ledger, to power the blockchain itself, that we talked about a little while back. So what's the scale of this concern? So we've got a quote there from essentially a professor at the Trinity College Dublin. Bitcoin alone consumes as much electricity as a medium-sized European country. This is a stunning amount of electricity. And that can be, and that type of narrative can be very, very alarming. So how should we think about this? The energy consumption was a feature, essentially, not a bug. When it was originally created. And here's what I mean by that. Essentially, the energy consumption essentially was a deterrent against hackers who would need to organize a huge number of computers and people to hack into the Bitcoin and blockchain system. But that was then in 2012. So however, this industry has already seen huge change. It's changed dramatically, and it's already grown up significantly. There's already been a redesign of how the ledger is processed, and that's been essentially effectively decreases the consumption by more than 99%. Only another one that we employ at DoinGud, which is essentially lazy minting. So only processing NFTs when they know they will sell. So essentially, it's not using the energy until the point at which it's needed. And as Wendy previously mentioned, with sort of the fundraising aspect of NFTs, artists and creators themselves are taking steps to reduce their energy consumption. And essentially, we need to start using the blockchain and crypto for good. And people, revolutionizing the system and decreasing the energy consumption makes that a possibility. all of this essentially is to say that the tech inside the blockchain, crypto, and NFTs system is becoming increasingly robust and sophisticated. The energy consumption profile is already better than it was, even compared to when myself and Wendy would come into this, apparently approximately around a year ago. But essentially, we start asking questions of like, what is this building towards, and why should we continue to invest, build, and mature the next versions of these blockchain systems? And that's because of the benefits that it brings, and the opportunities in it are enormous. For example, as I was gushing about before, I think in just our sector, the nonprofit sector, if we reflect on sort of like the number of years that donors and other stakeholders have been demanding, for example, greater transparency in fundraising, money spent and benefits delivered, as well as measurable impacts created. And for those of us actually delivering the impact, I think about the enormous organizational energy that's carved out to basically to do all of the annual fundraising. It's just, the idea of having to reinvent the wheel and coming back the next year to do all the same fundraising, any mechanism that enables passive fundraising, I think, we have to explore it. And I think people are revolutionizing the system to such a degree that it's making it more easily accessible. And yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing thing going forwards. One organization that has already sort of acknowledged this and is ahead of the curve is the actual United Nations themselves. So this actually may surprise you, because it did myself and Wendy when we were doing the research. So in the next slide, we have 2 points of view from the UN. First, the UN considered the issue of the energy consumption profile and arrived at this conclusion. So UN experts believe that cryptocurrencies and the technology that powers them, the blockchain, can play an important role in sustainable development and actually improving our stewardship of the environment. One of the most useful aspects of cryptocurrencies, as far as the UN is concerned, is transparency, which I think is immensely powerful. More on this energy consumption point. So the UN has actually indicated that it believes that the blockchain and crypto can actually contribute to improving global climate protection outcomes. So they've stated here that blockchain could be of great benefit to those fighting the climate crisis and help bring about a more sustainable global economy. Shown here is a few of their ideas on how blockchain can be used to help fight the climate crisis. So for example, carbon markets, climate finance, and clean energy. This is an infographic that we've actually reproduced from a report that I'd recommend to you all. It's from the UNEP DTU partnership.
Yeah, that's the third myth or risk. It's all scammers and criminals. Because criminals, or because users, let's say, because users can use cryptocurrencies anonymously, people are more likely to engage in bad behavior. So the truth, generally speaking, and I don't think that most trusted sources have ever claimed to disagree with this. And what I mean by that is, if you think that some of the governments are trusted sources, or you think if the Federal Trade Commission is a trusted source, it really depends who you believe your trusted sources are. And I recognize we each have our own version of that. It is true that there are tremendously sophisticated and elegant schemes going on to bilk people, to take people's cryptocurrency from them. And I just read a very interesting one from, I think it was the Washington Post this past weekend. And it is happening a lot. And I assume, but I don't know, that that weapons are exchanged through cryptocurrency, and drugs are. But here's what we know. What we know is that the US dollar is currently the most used currency for criminal behavior. There are many more US dollars in circulation than there is cryptocurrency. So what I think most economists believe or accept or have communicated is that any system of value will have people in it, system of value exchange, I mean, will have people in it who choose to behave badly. And it is part of the job of the Web3 community to, number one, make that hard, to number two, engage with policy and governments so that policy and governments and law enforcement can help consumers not get taken, not get fooled, tricked, and then in the event that they are, to help law enforcement participate in remedying that which has gone wrong. And in part, I kind of want to make the point to folks who are just getting exposed to this. One of the brilliant reasons to get at least a little bit educated now, and maybe even to start to get started, as we're going to hit in a few minutes. And Rebecca, I suggest we go for maybe another 5 or 6 minutes, and then like sort of stop wherever we are, and you know, kind of get into some discussion and answer some questions if you're open to that.
Yeah, amazing.
Policy is going to be made in the next big pieces of policy are going to be made by our governments in the next, I guess, 2 to 5 years. And it seems like one of the important things is that we as a population, in whatever jurisdiction you're in, have a knowledgeable voice, have a platform of understanding so that we can influence our politicians when they are making these new laws and regulations. What would be unfortunate is if we didn't learn from the experience we've all had from the big Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon experience, which is when those are being regulated, not enough of us thought about what does it mean to have my data handed over? What does it mean for me to have every photo I upload become property of the centralized authority, and to not be able to control that, or being given an option to control it, but it's such a difficult way to wade through all those pages and levels. It would have been better if we had all had a sense of what was going to become of all that data so that we were able to start to regulate it early on, rather than let 25 years pass until we figure out what it is. It's just a motivation for getting involved. I sort of went off piece there, so I apologize.
You're absolutely fine, don't worry. The last one to kind of hit is essentially this idea of it being too complicated. People hear tech and people hear that sounds too much, like that's not our bag. We don't get involved in that. So some of these things you might be thinking that it's only for large nonprofits, or that it's only for small nonprofits, or that it's only necessary for those if you have a donor ready to give crypto, or even if you know you are technologically inclined, that potentially you feel like your team isn't large enough to take this on. But essentially, we're here to tell you that there are already both small and large nonprofits in the space that already accept donations of crypto online. Nonprofits that accept crypto have access to a whole new pool of donors because, as Wendy highlighted before, they are hugely philanthropically inclined. It's a whole new industry of organizations that are actually being built specifically for crypto management for nonprofits and charities, because they recognize this need and this fearfulness, I suppose, in the industry, where, you know, they can recognize that this is a huge fundraising stream, not necessarily want to manage it themselves. So these organizations come in and manage that transaction from what we would refer to as from crypto to fiat, to normal currency. The beauty of the space is that it is quick, it has a great ease of entry, and obviously just do your own due diligence, but by and large, crypto wallets are easy to set up. And so branching into this world and experimenting can be done on a small scale, so as to test outcomes and with very, very low risk. But essentially, these are just some quick ways to get started. So as we've said before, do your own due diligence, observe how your peers are engaging. So, you know, find out those in the nonprofit space that are really seeing the space for what it is. You can, in under an hour, open a crypto wallet, open an account to exchange crypto to USD, and also connect an exchange account to your existing bank account. In this time, observe your new donor pools, see who's out there, see who's engaging with the message of your organization, and get on an NFT platform, buy a low priced NFT. There's a lot of really, really beautiful ones out there. I recommend DoinGud, because why wouldn't I? Yeah, it's about that. It's about that experimental, low risk mindset, I think. Anything to add there, Wendy?
So what is DoinGud? DoinGud is an NFT marketplace and ecosystem. And the purpose of DoinGud is to empower creators, collectors, curators, nonprofits, all community members to be more in control of their destiny. As Rebecca often says, if I'll use your word, to exercise more agency in both your funding as well as direction. Because each nonprofit, for instance, owns its own relationship with the creator and with the collector, if that's what the nonprofit wants to do. In DoinGud, we don't own, for instance, going back to our previous point, we don't own user data. And it doesn't matter which user group we're referring to, buyers, sellers, curators, visitors. DoinGud doesn't own the data. We only use the data for the purposes of transactions. And if someone wants to give us impact data in order to demonstrate, if organizations want to give us impact data in order to demonstrate that they're using well the donations that they collect on DoinGud, then that information we are very happy to display. And our intention, anchoring on another point we made earlier on, our intention is not necessarily to be very connected to the speculative components of NFTs. Our intention is to really continue to build until every person gets to exercise their creativity, and that creativity creates good in the world. It's to make giving an everyday thing, almost to the point where it's not about giving, it's just about sharing and living. So we have a lofty ambition to have a positive impact on the world. Actually, somebody asked this question. Yeah, maybe this will be our last. We'll hang out here and you can put up the, and I see Jenny's had her hand up for a bit, and we can hit some of these questions. We can leave this up, or the next the takeaways. And basically, all we wanted to let you know is that, and I think an anonymous joiner asked this question: is it possible for donations to reach nonprofits that doesn't require that degree of trust, that we assume that Justin, who has sold his beautiful piece of art as an NFT, we don't have to trust that he wrote that check to the Los Angeles homeless group, but that is there a way for donations to be streamed automatically and visible on the blockchain when we go to query the system? And the answer is yes, and that's exactly what one of the changes that DoinGud wants to bring. So for each and every sale of an NFT, you can just about see it here. For each and every sale of an NFT, a donation is directed to a nonprofit of the creator's choice, and those instructions to send money from the buyer to the seller and from the buyer to the nonprofit, all those instructions are built into the smart contract that's executed at DoinGud. So it is what is called, exactly as that person wrote the question, a trustless environment. Trust is not required because it's all programmed into the smart contract. So every NFT sale results in a donation that goes directly and transparently to a nonprofit of the creator's choosing.
Amazing. And I think we're going to be sharing the deck after this, but this is just a quick overview of when you're engaging with NFT marketplaces, just some things to consider. So possibilities for collabs, and especially the level of crypto expertise required. And also, as we mentioned before, the tech choices. So what's the accessibility and the energy consumption like? Like I say, we'll be sharing the deck afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this on the key takeaways for you guys to all read, and we can jump into the Q&A. So how does an NFT relate to a copyright? Who owns the copyright, the artist or the buyer? Very, very good question. And this is when I think of, this is where the magic of NFTs comes in, and that amazing smart contract that we mentioned. Essentially, all the terms are kept and maintained within that smart contract. And it is up to the creator, the person selling, that makes the NFT, as to what terms they are giving away. So to what level of copyright they are giving away. And that's then, once the smart contract is signed, it's signed in the same way as a normal contract would be. So essentially, you as a creator can determine what level of replication you're giving to people buying your work, if we're talking about it in an artistic sense.
What protects the buyer, Rebecca? What protects the buyer from an artist re-releasing the same item over and over? Or even a slight change? What protects the buyer from sort of cosmetic changes, but not meaningful changes in reselling?
It's a question actually that we've been talking about a lot in the NFT space, and I hear it reoccurring a lot. I suppose that the difficulty is that the value of creative expression. So do you as a consumer find something different in a modicum of change, such as like a different color overlay over an artistic work? I don't know if there's as such protections, but it's definitely a conversation that does reoccur in the space a great deal. And what I would say is that I think a huge protection in the space in general is the idea of your reputation in the space. It's a huge relationship building and relationship maintained space. So for example, if there is an artist who's constantly re-releasing work and basically potentially threatening the value of previous works, then there's a sort of like a community level of moving away from that artist. So there is that sort of check. But apart from that, Wendy, I don't know if you'd have.
I think you hit on that. That last one is particularly relevant from my perspective, because this is a user teach yourself environment, meaning everything about Web3, because it's not controlled by central authorities. It means there's a huge amount of responsibility and also a huge amount of choice for the individual users. So one of the ways to protect is to go to trusted marketplaces. Another way to protect is to potentially only buy high-priced things from artists or dealers, agents that you know, or can be whose provenance, whether it's an individual or the piece, can be demonstrated. You are able to see all of the previous owners. You don't have to have any special software or anything. Anyone can see all of the previous owners of NFTs because they are listed on the blockchain. And as you know, if you go to etherscan.io, you can look up anyone's wallet and any transaction. And let's say you're looking at a particular NFT, you can see all of the wallets that have touched or owned that NFT prior to you. So it's like using city smarts when you go out and about.
What does it cost to set up and per crypto transfer fee cost? So it for the first question, it's free. You can set up a crypto wallet very easy, very quickly, and entirely for free. Per crypto transfer, essentially it's that energy usage question again. Depends on the blockchain that you're using, but so for example, if you want to engage in for example the Ethereum blockchain, the gas fees can be quite high. But for the Polygon blockchain, which is the one that DoinGud rests on, it's what is it, Wendy? I think it's an embarrassingly low number. I think it's pennies.
Even it's a portion. It's a part of a penny.
Yeah, it's a percent of a penny.
That's right.
Yeah, for basically crypto in that way. And with regards, if you're talking about crypto transfer from crypto to fiat, then that depends on the exchange that you use. So that's what we said before when you were talking about how to get involved. You'll need to have a crypto wallet as well as some kind of exchange mechanism that might be built into the wallet, or it might be you might want to use a separate exchange.
So there's a question here. The Onnit Foundation. Every.org works with nonprofits as a platform for accepting crypto. Does your organization provide some of the same services or have other referrals to reputable platforms? We do. We don't provide the same services. We currently accept cryptocurrency only, and we will soon be adding credit cards to the types of payments that you can use. There are third parties that do provide services, all crypto related services for nonprofits, so that if a nonprofit financial director, for instance, decided, I don't want to learn about this that much and I don't really want to control it, I want a trusted party to control it, the giving block spelled like it sounds, the Giving Block is one of the largest providers of third-party services for nonprofits, and has been in the business since 2018. What's unusual about the Giving Block is that don't just provide crypto services. They would accept the crypto, for instance, that would be donated on DoinGud, and then they would turn it into US dollars or euros or pounds or Oz or Singapore dollars, and would charge a fee for that. But the Giving Block actually goes quite a bit further, and they tend to launch new campaigns for crypto so that all of their clients, and I think that number's around 1,200, all of their clients get more donations. So they're trying to be really good players in the marketplace, and they're very strong in that space. There are 3 or 4 others. Every.org has set up a space for every nonprofit in the US IRS database. As you know, 1.5 million nonprofits. There is another organization called Endowment, ENDAOMENT, and another prominent one called NGiven, ENGIVEN. And I'd say, Rebecca, if I'm not mistaken, those are 3 of the biggest players, along with every.org.
From Yadi, if we get a NFT donation, how do we record it for the giver on their annual giving statement, especially if it's not cashed out? Do you want to jump on that, Wendy?
Yeah, so as long as the donor provides their name and an email address, you would generate a donor letter the same way you would for a cash donation or a real estate donation or a car donation, any asset. As long as you have the donor's name and email address, you would generate the receipt, and it would be the value of the cryptocurrency on the day that it was given to you. The IRS, if we're talking about US organizations, the IRS has very clear guidance for nonprofits and cryptocurrency. And I think you can even search on IRS tax code, nonprofits, cryptocurrency. And the last time Rebecca and I looked at it, which was probably 4 or 5 months ago, it is almost a single page, and I'd say it's well explained, and it's thorough, and it's something that all financial directors and accountants can easily understand. Why is that? Because from a tax perspective, crypto is treated exactly as every other asset, such as shares. Stocks and shares. So it behaves the same way for the IRS as a stock certificate. Is there an easy, from Roger Eaton, is there an easy way to include an NFT in a fundraising email? Rebecca, that sounds intriguing. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, do you mind clarifying the question a little bit? Is it a case of you have an NFT that you want to get people to buy, or kind of what way would that work? Feel free to type it in the chat, Roger. But if that is the case, if you have an NFT that your organization has been able to work on and mint, essentially you would promote it in the same way that you'd promote any sort of fundraising effort. You'd send them the link and tell them at what period of time that they're able to buy the NFT. If that answers your question, let me know. Similarly, Chaz asks, will you expand on specific ways nonprofits can benefit from lifetime royalties and contracts? i.e. a nonprofit mints an NFT that has a set of tickets to a conference attached to it, like Gary Vee with VeeFriends. Do the people who trade for the NFT get all those original benefits from the contract? That's a good question.
So at the point when the NFT is created, when it's first sold, all of the contractual arrangements are already made. So before the first sale occurs, the owner of the NFT sets the terms for the first sale and all the sales in the future. So whatever that creator has set as the requirements, in the primary sale, I want the nonprofit to get 60%, and I, the creator, want 40%. In future sales, I want the nonprofit to get 25%, I want 25%, and the seller for the secondary sale can have 50%. And those terms of that contract stay with that NFT ad infinitum. So every time that thing is sold in the future, the nonprofit gets 25%. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. With every sale of that NFT, because the contract said so, the nonprofit gets 25%.
The other question I wanted you to jump on, Wendy, actually, would you mind? The one in the Q&A, it says from C. Jure, it's, do you have a use case example, or do you have a use case as an example of best case success for one of your NGO clients? So I suppose it's nonprofits that are attached to us.
So I don't, because we're just getting started. But I will tell you that the nonprofits have, or NGOs have, lots of examples. And one of the things, if I were going to direct you to a case study, what I would love to do is direct you to the UNDP, because they are doing a huge amount to use blockchain to both follow the money and to follow, and sometimes that lands with individual families. And they also follow the money through supply chains. And the UN and many others, but I think it's sort of easier to find because the UN publishes everything. They are following the money and the supply chain so that one can see exactly how a cryptocurrency donation turns into impact. And impact with accountability, I guess I want to add.
Last quick one, can I just jump in with Roses?
Please.
It's how do we get started with you to help set up an NFT fundraiser effort? Essentially, you'll be receiving a PDF about NFT fundraising after this. But also, if you want to reach out to us directly, the email's on screen at the minute, Rose. And essentially, we have a very short application, and that is entirely free. And essentially, it will allow you to be put up on the registry of nonprofits on the DoinGud website that creators can choose from.
Thank you so much. Also, adding to Rebecca's point that we, for all our attendees currently viewing this, we will be sharing a deck of this webinar, a recording of this webinar. And apart from this, I think for all our attendees, you can avail a free demo session with DoinGud, with Rebecca, with Wendy, whosoever. And you can avail a free demo session wherein they will run you through how your nonprofit can start your journey on an NFT fundraising and accepting donations through NFTs and other ways of leveraging crypto and NFTs as well. So I think that would be something that we will be sharing a link with all of you, all of the attendees, whosoever have joined. And this is something that we'll be going to share in the next couple of days. So stay tuned, keep checking your emails from Goodera, and we will definitely ping you in your email. Any closing words, Wendy and Rebecca? I think we have already crossed the timeline.
Thank you. I think it was only to say thank you so much for inviting us and for asking these great questions, and for the enthusiasm for learning. We are all learning together about Web3. We are, Rebecca and I are ahead of a few people and we're behind a lot. So we are all learning together, and DoinGud, for instance, is a no knowledge, there's no assumed knowledge to start.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And like I say, our emails are there. So Wendy at doinggud.com, Rebecca at doinggud.com, and then also you can reach us at socialimpact@doinggud.com. And all I can say is that thank you so much, Pratham and the team at Goodera. It's been amazing. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Wendy. This has been a great session, even for us personally as well. And I hope all our attendees enjoyed it and got something to learn out of the webinar, out of the content that you've shared. I think it was really, really interesting and very, very intriguing at the same time. And for all your questions, keep them saved, book demo session with DoinGud and ask all of them with Rebecca and Wendy. And to be a part of Goodera's Karma community, the exclusive nonprofit community, I think you can always search Karma community on Facebook, and you'll definitely get, and we'll share the link here in the chat box as well. Reach out to us on our website as well, and partner with us for more such knowledgeable sessions, and we will see you in the next webinar. So we'll be sharing the link right away in some time, and in the post webinar emailer as well. And till then, stay tuned and have a great day ahead. I think with that, I would like to bring it to a close. Thank you so much, Rebecca, Wendy, and all the attendees who joined in. I hope this was a great learning session for you. Have a great day ahead. Please take care, everyone. Bye.